بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. The Lahore MBA community welcomes you to its Sunday morning broadcasts called The Call of the Messiah. This is the 23rd broadcast in this series, and this is the second broadcast in the series Refuting the Qadianiyat. And I want to add here that the material for this has been collected by a non-Ahmadi friend. He set about comparing the beliefs of the Lahore Jamaat with the beliefs of the Qadiani Jamaat in the light of the writings of the promised Messiah himself. And he wanted to see which Jamaat was established on the correct principles laid down in the writings of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam. And he has come to the conclusion that it is the Lahore Jamaat that correctly follows what Hazrat Mirza Sahib said and wrote. And our friend has gone through the writings of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib and the Qadian Jamaat and the Lahore Jamaat and collected together a huge number of references and compiled them in the form of a book. And his complaint about our Jamaat is the fact that we don't present the claims of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib and we don't refute the Qadiani Jamaat with the force that we should be doing. And he has handed over to me years of his research and said that all he is concerned with is that people should know the truth. So we started this series to bring to light the contradiction between the beliefs of the Qadiani Jamaat and claims of Hazrat Masih Maud Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib. I will now share this book with you. And you will see what he has to say. The book is in Urdu. So I will translate as I go along. Our friend because of his inspiration in his heart, sometimes gets carried away and uses slightly strong language. So you will find that in some places I have blocked out what he has said. And I apologize to him for that. But as I said to him in my email, our purpose is to get people to see the truth. So we should avoid anything. We should avoid anything that will make them angry or defensive or annoyed. And it is with that spirit that these things are presented to the members of the Qadiani Jamaat. Here they can come up with all manner of excuses. We have more money, we are better organized, we have more members, and so on. The answer to which is the whole of the Muslim Ummah sided with Yazid. He not only had the whole of the Ummah, he also had the government. He also had the money. He also had the armies. So, today, who says that Yazid was right and Hazrat Imam Hussain alayhi salam was wrong? Is there anyone? And the same applies. Jesus claimed to be a prophet of God. Today, those who say that he was the Son of God and a part of Trinity, they have their own government in Vatican. And they are much greater in numbers and wealth and organization compared to the Qadiani Jamaat. Will the Qadiani Jamaat then say that they also believe in Trinity and not unity of Godhead? Hazrat Sahib himself has said that money and numbers don't mean anything. There was a time when the governments and people of the whole world believed that earth is flat and the sun is going round the earth. And there was only one man who believed that earth went round the sun. And earth wasn't the center of the universe. And that was Galileo. And those who disagreed with him, they had governments, they had people, they had money, they had armies. But who was right? Which one of the two was correct? The man who said that Jesus is a human being, or those who said that he was the Son of God? Now let us go through our friend's writing. He says, of the Qadiani Ummah, their second Khalifa, Mirza Mahmud, says that Mirza Sahib, this is Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, was appointed a prophet in 1884, Common Era. And Mirza Mahmud believes that for 17 years, Hazrat Sahib had no idea that he was a prophet, but kept on calling himself a muhaddis. That means a non-prophet to whom God speaks. And he kept writing, I'm just a muhaddis, I'm just a non-prophet, recipient of conversation from God. And this station was given to Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala and other awliya, other saints of this nation. But then in 1901, Hazrat Sahib realized, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad realized that he was actually a prophet. And in 1884, the God's revelation in Brahine Ahmadiyya meant that he was really a prophet and not a muhaddis. So after 1904, Hazrat Mirza Sahib claimed that he was a prophet. Our friend then quotes Mirza Mahmud Ahmad Sahib and says, there was no time at which the promised Messiah could not understand his claim. From beginning to the end, he understood his station upon which God had placed him. But he was a bit careful about what name to use for that. That is to say, whether it should be called prophethood or muhaddisiyat. In Warul Ulum, volume 4, page 211. Qadiani Jamaat published all the writings of Mian Mahmud Ahmad Sahib under Anwarul Ulum, under the title Anwarul Ulum. But the problem is that in Haqiqatul Nabuwat, which was written before this, Mian Mahmud Ahmad said this. Before 1901, he said that by prophet, it only means a muhaddis. And in 1901, he declared that he can only be called a prophet. He cannot be a muhaddis, because muhaddis does not include in it matters of the unseen. And this difference arose because he had a different definition of prophet previously. And because he didn't consider himself to be a prophet, then he thought that maybe lower than the prophet's grade is the grade of muhaddis. I must be that. And its name is muhaddis. But when he found out that that station, that stage, that degree is of prophethood, whose definition he thought was muhaddis, that is non-prophet recipient of revelation, then he denied being a muhaddis and announced being a prophet. Anwarul Ulum, volume 2, page 450. Now, here, Mirza Mahmud himself says that Mirza Sahib did not understand, did not say before 1901 that he was a prophet, but that he was only a muhaddis. In another place, Mian Mahmud Ahmad says, in the same way at the time of Ibrahim, he was called a prophet. But God put a curtain on it. Both things, were revealed at the time of Ibrahim to show that it wasn't a conspiracy, and they were kept hidden so that the seekers after the truth should not be overburdened. Then after 10 years, the curtain was raised on the question of death of Jesus. But the curtain still remained on the prophethood, so that the Jamaat may become strong. And then in 1901, that curtain was also raised, and the truth became apparent. And whatever happened, happened in line with the ancient law of Allah. The question of prophethood and messiahship are exactly the same. Just as at the beginning, although he was called, given the name of the Messiah, he considered Messiah to be alive. In the same way, the promised Messiah, despite being called a prophet, kept interpreting it, kept interpreting finality of prophethood in the same way as other people did. Then the promised Messiah, despite being called a prophet, interpreted the finality of prophethood as other people. In the same way, at the beginning of his claim of messiahship, he kept on saying it's possible for some other Messiah to come. And he kept on believing that other Messiahs can come. But then it was revealed, and he wrote that after him, there is no other Messiah. In the same way, at first, he declared his prophethood to be partial and considered many people from among the Ummah of Muhammad to be included in this. But when it was perfectly revealed to him that after him, no other person deserves this name. Thus, this was a miracle of Allah. And this was to manifest the ancient law of Allah. And foolish are those who object to it. For such an objection includes all prophets. Now, this is very difficult, and our friend points out. Can it be that a person is appointed a prophet and doesn't know for years and years that he is a prophet? How can that be? This is from Anwarul Aloom, Volume 2, page 465. So he summarizes, our friend summarizes what Mahmood Ahmad Sahib is saying, that Mirza Sahib would, to explain his claim, would say that I receive in abundance revelation from God, and God calls me Nabi and Rasul, but by it is only meant Muhaddasiyat, that is the non-prophet with whom God speaks. But after 1901, he discovered that no, it's a higher station than that of Muhaddasiyat. At another place, Mir Mahmud says, it is incorrect that the promised Messiah became a prophet by degrees, because I have proven that the detail of the claim that he would present showed that he was a prophet. Thus, his claim from the very beginning was that of a prophet. If there was a change that occurred, it was simply that after 1901, he adopted this name with more clarity. So, this is not a gradual change, but from beginning to end, it has been the same. So here, Mir Sahib is saying that this is not a gradual development, but from 1884 of the Common Era, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was appointed a prophet, and he considered himself to be a prophet, but he laid the claim in 1901. And before that, he kept considering himself to be a non-prophet recipient of revelation. So our friend says that the answer is number one. If Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh was appointed as a prophet in 1884, and in 17 years he kept on considering himself to be a non-prophet, and God did not correct him, this proves that he was not a prophet. Because to believe in prophets is a religious duty. And Mirza Sahib believed that if a prophet made a mistake in a religious matter, he was immediately corrected. Our friend then quotes Hazrat Mirza Sahib. Hazrat Sahib says, sometimes a prophet can make an error of judgment or interpreting a revelation, if that error has something to do with religion and commandments of religion, then he is immediately warned. But if it's to do with something else, then it's not necessary that he is informed. Malfuzat, volume 4, page 85. And then he again quotes Hazrat Sahib. Thus, all this establishes the principle that in interpreting prophecies, sometimes even prophets can err, because they are human beings. Thus, in interpretation and explanation, there is a chance of making a mistake. But in religious matters of faith, there is no room for such error. For this is what comes from God is specifically guarded. And the prophets are taught in practice what it is. Ruhani Khazan, volume 3. So, if Hazrat Sahib was made a prophet in 1884, but he misunderstood it, then God would have corrected him immediately. The fact that God did not correct him shows that he was not a prophet. He was a non-prophet with whom God spoke. And he was correct in his claim that he was a non-prophet sent by God. And our friend then quotes Hazrat Sahib, this humble person has been sent by God for this nation as a non-prophet with whom God speaks. Ruhani Khazan, Volume 3. Otherwise, it is very strange that God appoints a prophet and that prophet doesn't consider himself to be a prophet and says, I am not a prophet, and God does not correct him for 17 years. And people keep accepting him as a non-prophet and not as a prophet. So what does that mean? That God is leaving people in error and people are being deceived through inaction by God? You cannot compare the question of prophethood with the question of death of Jesus. Because a Muslim is required by Islam to believe in all the prophets. But he is not required by Islam to believe in life or death of Jesus. Hazrat Mirza Sahib himself says, first, it should be understood that coming of Jesus, that the belief in the coming of Jesus is not a part of our faith. It's not a part of the essentials of our religion. It is a prophecy from among hundreds of prophecies, which has nothing to do with the fundamentals of Islam. Until the time it was made clear, it does not mean that Islam wasn't perfect. And it also does not mean that now that it has been clarified, Islam has become perfect. Ruhani Khazan, Volume 3. So Hazrat Sahib himself says that belief or non-belief in coming of Jesus physically is not a part of our faith, but it is a part of our faith to accept all prophets sent by God. So how can it be that God does not correct for 17 years the wrong statements of one of his prophets? Thus, it shows that Hazrat Sahib was a non-prophet with whom God spoke. And then Mahmud Ahmad also says we shouldn't argue from the books where Hazrat Sahib has said that he is not a prophet, because such statements are based on a lack of knowledge and understanding. But Hazrat Sahib says, for example, about Aina-e-Kamalat Islam, I am not a prophet, but I am a muhaddis with whom God speaks, so that I may renew the religion of Muhammad Mustafa. And then about the same book, he says, I apologize for saying that I wrote it, for I see that from beginning to end in its writing, God helped me in different ways and put in it the subtleties of religion which are beyond the powers and prowess of any man. And I know that it is a sign of God. Oh, dear people, this book is a sample of manifestation of God's majesty. A human being's efforts and assertions cannot themselves produce such treasures. During the writing of this book, twice the Holy Prophet Muhammad appeared to me and expressed his delight at its writing. One night I saw an angel is calling people towards it in a loud voice. And he is saying, this book is blessed. Stand up and show reverence for it. And then our friend says, this is the book in which Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib claimed that he was a muhaddis, a non-prophet. The Holy Prophet Muhammad came to him twice in the writing of this book and did not correct him. The angel came to him during the writing of this book and he did not correct him. He kept on calling this book blessed. How can it be blessed when in it his station was incorrect? Then Mirza Ghulam Ahmad has also said in Ayyamussalah, remember that in the collection of Muslim about the promised Messiah, the word Nabi is used, but as a simile or a metaphor. Ruhani Khazan, volume 14, page 300. And then about this book, Ayyamussalah, Hazrat Sahib says, I advise the readers not to look at my book with a cursory eye. I have delivered to them the message that has been given to me by God. And I'm certain that I have completed my argument upon all of you. The righteous and wise people know that from the beginning it has been the way of prophets and messengers and divine appointees that they complete their argument on people by three things: from the commandments, from rationally, and by showing heavenly support. And I have done this by Allah's blessing in all 3 ways. Now, this message, which is from God and has been delivered to people in it, Hazrat Sahib says that he is not, that in the collection of Muslim, the word Nabi has been used as a metaphor. Now, Mian Mahmud Ahmad Sahib says that Hazrat Sahib changed his claim. But in Nazulul Masih, he continues to make his old claim. And Hazrat Sahib says, I've written 22 books in eloquent Arabic. And then he names the books and he says that they're full of wisdom and religious knowledge, etc. And here, this is Ruhani Khazan, volume 18, pages 439 to 40, written in 1902, where Hazrat Sahib says that this book is full of religious knowledge and wisdom. But Mian Mahmud Ahmad Sahib says that Mirza Sahib's knowledge was imperfect and incorrect. He writes about Hamamatul Bushra. This book, by the blessing of Allah, when you read it carefully, you will find it perfect and satisfying. And in this book, with definite and certain and correct arguments from the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of Allah's Prophet, we have conclusively completed our argument on our opponents. And in Azala Wahab, Hazrat Sahib says that it's full of such arguments about death of Jesus and so on and so forth. And he calls himself a muhaddis. And he printed specific advertisement about Azala Wahab, in which he said hundreds of secrets revealed by Allah on this humble servant have been explained in this book. And in that book he says Jesus is dead and he is a muhaddis. So why did God not explain to him that he is actually a prophet? But the difficulty is that the Qadiani Jamaat believes that Khalifa cannot make an error in religious matters. They believe that Mian Mahmud Ahmad Sahib was the promised son, was divinely raised. So they're stuck with this. They don't know what to do. Here, an independent person, after analyzing Hazrat Sahib's books, in the light and analyzing the beliefs of Mian Mahmud Ahmad Sahib and our Jamaat in the light of those books, comes to the conclusion that the Qadiani Jamaat is mistaken and wrong in their beliefs. But people still keep on saying, the promised son, the promised son. This is stuck in their throat. They can't swallow it and they can't spit it out. They can't swallow it and they can't spit it out. And they can't answer it. The only answer is our numbers. And I end it with this question. The greatest number of people in the world today are atheists. Does it mean that God doesn't exist? With that, we come to the end of this broadcast. It has been longer than our usual half hour, so I apologize for that. And inshallah, we'll meet again tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. when we broadcast our series, Reflections on the Holy Quran. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.